I'm going to call this meeting to order. Mrs. Murphy, or no, Murray, sorry. Mrs. Murray, would you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would respect the appropriate silence. Thank you. Announcements. An executive session was held on May 22nd, 2019 in the admin office at Wickdale to discuss the superintendent search. An additional announcement regarding childcare. The current childcare exceptions will remain status quo. The board will allow all attendance exceptions for the 2019-20 school year. Do I have an approval of? Oh, thank you. The board was also met in executive session on June 11th at 6:15 to discuss legal and personnel issues. Do I have an approval of the minutes?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. For adoption of the agenda, I would like to amend the agenda to say the following for human relations discussion item 1. The amendment will read, approve a contract with Learning Opportunities Group, LLC, to serve as suitable interim superintendent for mutually agreed upon term and compensation. Do I have an approval of the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, presentations. Mrs. Beidler, recognition of spring sports. Welcome.
Thank you. If I could have the baseball, softball, and tennis representatives come down, and while they're on their way down, 3 of 4 of our spring sports earned sportsmanship awards for the league this year. So. Yeah, and girls too. They don't get out of this. You are. You're here. You're a representative. And I can farm out the rest of these. Yeah. Get a farm these out to you guys to give to the kids. That's right.
Thank you so much to Mrs. Beidler. I also want to welcome Gareth, who is here from Stocking Leader, and will be serving in our solicitor role this evening. Mr. Skozen is not feeling well and is not here this evening, will not be in our meeting. We are now moving on to our public input session. We will begin with items that are on the agenda. Our first individual is Kathy Bolts. Kathy, we ask that you come up to the podium, which is right here. Kathy, you'll have 4 minutes, and Gareth is going to be keeping your time. Please state your name and address.
Kathy Bolts, 210 Shepherd Street, Johnstown. Yep. Okay, thanks to all of you on the school board who took the time to talk to me this parents have secured a provider where they feel they are able to integrate the daycare costs in the family budget. In other words, they figured out how to afford daycare. The original proposal that was going to be voted on mandated that parents would be forced to find a daycare provider within the boundaries of the elementary school where they reside. As the board continues to explore ways to provide economical transportation for students and lower teacher-to-child ratios, I respectfully ask that you consider the following. First of all, there might not be any daycare providers within the boundaries of the designated schools. If there are providers, there might not be any openings. Any parent in this room who had to secure daycare knows that it's very hard to find competent and affordable daycare. Many times the solution to the above issues is to find a friend or family member to provide daycare before and after school. Many times this friend or family member does not live within the designated perimeters designed by the district. I ask you to consider the following. The child should be allowed to go to the school where the child is being cared for in the morning, whether it's at home or in daycare. If the daycare is not within the confines of the child's school, whether he or she resides, and the district cannot assimilate the cost of transportation to the child's elementary school or home facility, it would be up to the provider or the parent to figure out the transportation to that particular school. There is no solution that will be agreeable to every resident in the district, but this solution allows the parent to make the decision to whether the child goes to the daycare provider's designated school or his or her school where she resides. The burden of the decision would not be yours. The district would be able to forecast the class size by mandating that the parent communicates their decision in a certain required amount of time. Also, please be aware that there are many children who would be adversely affected by the disruption of being sent to a new school when they've already built relationships with their teachers, friends, and principals. Finally, as we begin another chapter at NL with the new superintendent, I recommend the school board create a focus group with some interested parents. This group could identify key improvements needed in the district and recommend solutions. Open communication is the key to any organization's success. Thank you.
Our next individual commenting on items on the agenda, Andrew Murphy.
Andrew Murphy, 1828 Blacksbridge Road, Anvil, PA. It should be no surprise that I'm going to talk on the budget again. You are doing your final adoption of a budget that is $1 million short. We were told a year or two ago that in 3 years we'll be negative $1 million. You gotta stop the bleeding. You gotta do what you gotta do to cut. I don't know, otherwise, how are we going to afford the teachers? How are we going to keep the lights on if we go below zero? So you have $1 million short this year. Then you're adding another administrative position. You put in the new position of the Director of Instruction and Student Services, and you're voting on reassigning Mr. Reese there. You're switching up to have one principal for 2 schools for each of the elementary. Great, that's a great idea. But you're also adding another assistant principal / athletic director. Well, I agree an athletic director is needed. We've been using one part-time, but that's another administration position you're putting in, which is that in the budget. And how much more increase in the salary are these reassignments going? That's going to affect your budget. We got to get the budget under control. You need to have a budget that is balanced or positive. You're raising our taxes this year. You did it last year. And you still, I told you last year, don't raise taxes unless you make significant cuts. $1 million short is not significant cuts. We gotta fix it. You can only kick it down the road so long until it bites you in the ass. Thank you.
Next individual, William Ritter, please, commenting on item on the agenda.
William Ritter, 43 Arrow Court. I just only found out about this 2 nights ago, about this agenda to move for the kids to leave their school district from where they are. My daughter's going to be still in daycare in about another year or so because of the current job that I'm holding. I'm retired. I just moved up here a year ago. I don't get why you're doing this. You're supposed to be educators. Why in the world, if we're all paying taxes into one system, are we worried about what part of the school it is? It's not like they're leaving the school district to go out someplace like maybe Harrisburg or something. Why would you put a hardship on the people that are paying your bill? These are the taxpayers. It's not like it's an improvement upon the school district. You're placing a hardship on the people that are already in a hardship. Where is the sense in that? Where is that? Is it benefiting you somehow? Is it benefiting the education of the student? Is it benefiting the welfare of the student and the family? It's an undue hardship. All these people have to take the time out of their night in the middle of a weekday to come out here and worry about what they're going to do with their kids in the next year or the year after, from what I understand. Why in the world would you do that? My daughter's going to be in that spot in a year. I moved out here to get away from this nonsense. I didn't move to Jonestown in the middle of central Pennsylvania because it was a nice countryside. It is. It's a great town. But why in the world would you put that hardship on us? We're taxpayers. This is the most obscene thing I've ever heard come from a school district. And I've sat on boards of fire districts, EMS districts, Boy Scout districts inside New York City. I've never heard such an obscene thought. You're going to take these poor parents, some of them single parents, put more hardship on them when they got to worry about where the students going to school now? If it's for money, then say so. But from the statement that she gave me when we asked in that little corner huddle over there, it has to do with some type of lines in the school. Who comes first, the lines or the student? Seriously. I got one neighbor that's already got the hardship, they're going through it. I got another one I heard it from, another guy from the firehouse I heard it from. I mean, come on. These are the students. You're really going to pay, you're really even contemplating an idea to take a student like that, this lady said a few minutes ago. You're going to take them out of an environment they're already used to, a learning environment, a comfort environment, and purposely put them in somewhere else to make some lines? To a piece of line? I mean, seriously? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any common sense. That doesn't make any logical sense. Why in the world would you even be contemplating doing that? Thank you. Have a good day.
Lisa McCoy, commenting on agenda item. I just would like to remind the public as well that the transportation is not on the agenda. So if you're commenting on the agenda, your comments would be at the end. So transportation, when I call your name, if you are commenting on agenda item, please specify that. But if it's a transportation comment, that would be a non-agenda item. So that would be at the end.
Lisa McCoy, 445 South Lancaster Street, Lebanon. So I put in to comment on transportation because it was on the agenda item. So now that it has been removed from the agenda, I will comment on the Act 93 information as because I have some documentation that shows, all these poor people, and me included as a single mom, we have all these people for Act 92 making, I think the lowest is, $87,000 a year. But we have two principals who are making over $90,000 a year according to what this Act 93 is going to push out for this year. And we have a
A high school principal who's making over $100,000. I mean, I really think that we should be looking at the budget and trying to cut that so that if the transportation cost would come into the budget play, that we would be a little bit more responsible and a little bit more about our students. You have minimal abilities to be able to have these students stay where they're supposed to be due to funding. And with a budget that is poor, not balanced, and cuts being made in small portions, and then taking on large contracts for buses and putting in GPSs and cameras. You know, again, like I have said before, why are we putting bells and whistles into transportation when just about every single student on that bus has a cell phone? The bus drivers, I'm sure, have cell phones. There's GPS already on there. You don't need GPS. You don't need to have cameras on buses if you have students who respect their leadership. You wouldn't need that. Your students would comply as long as they felt they were being treated appropriately and treated like decent human beings. These kids are not monsters, but they have been allowed to manipulate administration, staff, so that they are able to get what they want out of staff. And that is where your problem is. Your problem lies with the leadership as a whole. You need to look at the climate, what the problem is. Stop putting Band-Aids on things. Stop giving more people more money. No disrespect, but $60,000 increases is ridiculous. A few $1,000s here and there. As far as I'm aware, as an educator, you go into this business to educate students, to make them a better citizen, to teach them, to give them the love that you have for an English or a history or a STEM. You're not in it for the money. There are state employees that make far less than you do and do far more. We need to be mindful of where we're spending our money. And if you continue to go about it this way, when transportation comes around again, people are going to have an issue.
Thanks for sharing. Our last person to speak this evening is Nate Carpenter. Item on the agenda? Till the end? Okay, thank you. That is all of our public input items for agenda items. We will now go on to old business. Is there any old business?
I have old business. Last month, one of the public input sessions, or someone that spoke during public input said some things that kind of startled the board and probably the rest of the people that were here. Words like human trafficking and things like that were used. So the board did immediately ask Mr. Skozin to look into things, and I just wanted to share with you some things that hopefully are a little bit reassuring about what were shared with us. First of all, as far as visitors coming into lunches, high school lunches are often visited by guests who provide students with information about mental health, blood donation, voting registration, post-secondary education, and the military, to name a few. All guests to our school are required to be supervised but do not require clearances. Lunches have 3 to 4 supervising teachers at all times. This has been regular practice at Northern Lebanon for years. There have been no previous complaints communicated prior to this. After the parental concerns about this incident happened, some of the following precautions are being put into place for next year. There will be contact made with every agency in question to get more information from them. In the future, advertise the lunch visitor information in emailed and texted parent update newsletters a week in advance. Implement a protocol for escorting guests throughout the building for 2019-20. This is done now, but it's being discussed that we should tighten it up and formalize it. So that's the first part. The second part was the owner of the Harrisburg branch of Barbizon and did some research. What is it? Barbizon. Okay. Did some research independently. Barbizon Harrisburg is rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. The company has been in business for 80 years. The Harrisburg branch opened in 1976. It is a modeling agency. They offer courses on performance, confidence building, etiquette, and style. They represent clients for a fee. The purpose of high school visitation is to advertise a $100,000 scholarship that the company offers to one student aged 13 to 18 biannually. This year the scholarship was awarded to a young lady at the Pennsylvania Farm Show. Jonathan has a video that he will share. The Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding, presented this scholarship at the farm show. Barbizon collects student demographic information to go into a drawing. He is sending me the blank form and will return any NL completed forms to us if we would like. And then a brief bio of Mr. Roth. Met the owner of Barbizon. Mr. Roth met the owner of Barbizon at his own high school job fair 26 years ago. He's worked for the company ever since. He's now an owner of one of these companies in Pennsylvania. So I just wanted to share, hopefully that is more settling. I know it was more settling to us as a board when we heard it. I wanted to share it with the community as well. And I think through reflection, administration has kind of seen some areas that yes, we can definitely tighten up to make visitors that come in even more accountable, and we can always do a better job. So I respect the administration for reflecting honestly and knowing that we can definitely improve, and that's a credit to them, and I think improvement will come next year. But I just wanted to share that, as I was very kind of relieved when that was shared with us, and hopefully it's a little bit of encouragement to you as the community as well. That's it for old business for me, Mrs. Sell.
Thank you, Mr. Urban. Any additional old business? Okay, we will now go on to the voting part of our meeting. Just so everyone is aware, we are going to do our roll call a little different. My wording is going to be the following. This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless I hear a nay or abstain. I abstain. So unless you're a negative, a nay, or your abstention, it will just be an affirmative roll call vote. There will be some times that I will call for a roll call vote by each individual. Mrs. Martin, I will ask for that roll call vote. Otherwise, we will do the unanimous roll call vote. Any questions about that before we begin the voting set component? Okay. All right, financial reports, Director Sekelic, please.
Motion to approve the payment of vouchers and statement of cash transactions in the general fund in the amount of $3,448,990.36 for month ended May 2019. There were no disbursements in the capital projects fund for month ended May 2019.
I call a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless I hear a nay or I abstain. Motion carries.
Motion to accept the student activity account for month ended May 2019, subject to audit.
Do I have a second? Second. Again, unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in affirmative unless I hear nay or abstain. Motion carries. Budget and Finance, Director Sekelic, please.
Motion to approve items 1 through 12 for consent.
Okay, again, unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in affirmative unless I hear a nay or I abstain. Motion carries.
Motion to approve the following item for discussion. Motion to adopt the final budget establishing total expenditures and appropriations of the general fund in the amount of $40,237,378 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020. Provide that current tax revenue from local sources to support said budget shall be obtained by levying a 13.7811 mill rate increase. This is a 2.0% tax increase.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Martin, will you please take a roll call vote?
Klein,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Fox,
No.
Sekelic,
Yes.
Erdman.
Yes.
Sell,
No.
D7 yes, 2 no.
Moving on to building and grounds, Director Brewer, please.
Motion to approve the following items for consent, items number 1 and 2 on your agenda.
Second.
This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in affirmative unless I hear nay or abstain. Motion carries. Director Murray, curriculum, please.
Motion to approve the following items, items 1, 2, and 3.
Second,
Unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded as affirmative unless I hear nay or abstain. Motion carries.
Motion to approve the following items of discussion.
second,
Discussion?
I have brief discussion just because we've discussed this quite a bit in the committee and we received some more information to some of those questions. And just kind of reflecting and on personal experiences, about 4.5 years ago, that current board approved ELA curriculum to be used in the elementary schools. They saw the curriculum, they did not see the tools that would be used to evaluate, assess, target. There was little to no discussion between teachers. One teacher was assessing it one way, and then in another class it was completely different way. Parents were not seeing the reading tests. Only one teacher was sending them home because he wasn't aware he wasn't supposed to be sending them home. This, I guess you could say, is what started my crusade into Northern Lebanon, because these tests were used for 50% of a 4th grader and 5th grader's grade. So if you were not assessing them correctly, or it wasn't discussed in groups and used the right way, it had significant negative effects on students. And I get a little bit weary and concerned when I understand that our role is to approve this curriculum. It is not to micromanage or look at how the assessments will be used, but when you're hearing that they are only now in August, they will have completed what will be used in the first trimester of school. So I look at a teacher learning new curriculum, how it's going to be used, how it's going to be assessed, new ways of how it's going to be assessed, and they're learning this on students. So I am going to trust that if moving forward with this, there are concerns, there are red flags, there are issues, that we pause and look at what we're doing, or the administration pauses and looks at what they're doing, steps back, takes a breather, and reevaluates. As far as the curriculum, I will approve the curriculum. I have a lot of hope that it will be used correctly. Thanks.
Additional discussion?
I just would like to commend those teachers that were a part of that committee. You did a fantastic job and worked really hard on the curriculum that was presented. And so I thank you for your time and hard work and dedication to improving our math curriculum.
The thing I'd like to add too is I'd like to see that we look at adding text materials, updating our text materials to support the curriculum as well. I'm pleased that we're now looking at scope and sequence and aligning ourselves.
Anything else? Mrs. Martin, roll call vote, please.
Gray,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
England,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Sekelic,
Yes.
Erdman,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
all in favor.
Director Klein, extracurricular, please.
I motion to approve the following consent item number 1 on your agenda.
Unanimous roll call vote. You will be recorded affirmative unless I hear nay or abstain. Motion carries. Director Erman, Human Relations.
I motion to approve the following items for consent, items number 1 through 8.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Unanimous roll call vote. You will be recorded affirmative unless I hear a nay or an abstain. Motion carries. Is there anyone in the audience who has been approved for employment this evening that would like to introduce themselves? Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Emily Rooch, and I was board approved tonight to continue to be the first grade teacher at Fredericksburg.
Yes, please.
My name is Alyssa Fellows, and I was just approved as the new director of transportation.
Mr. Brown, just approved as the director of buildings and grounds.
Welcome to all of our new employees, and thank you for coming tonight to introduce yourselves. Moving on to our discussion items.
Yes, the following items are up for discussion. Number 1 was actually amended. Mrs. Sell amended that, so yes, I'm going to right now. Number 1 now reads to a motion to approve a contract with the Learning Opportunities Group LLC to secure a suitable interim superintendent for a mutually agreeable term and compensation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Unanimous roll call vote. You will be recorded affirmative unless I hear otherwise. Motion carries.
Item number 2 for discussion, approve the 1-year Act 93 agreement for the 2019-2020 school year, including the following administrative reassignments. Mr. Brad Reese, Director of Instruction and Student Services, Mr. William Vogt, Middle School Principal, Mr. John Rizzo, Fredericksburg and Jonestown Principal.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Martin, roll call vote, please.
Brewer,
Nay.
England,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Fox,
No.
Sekelic,
No.
Erdman,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no.
Final item.
And
Herman?
number 3 for discussion, approve the 1-year compensation plan for classified personnel for 2019-2020.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call vote, please, Mrs. Murray. Or, sorry, Mrs. Martin.
England,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Sekelic,
Yes.
Erdman,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes.
all in favor.
Mr. Skozen is not here tonight to give his report, so we will move on to reports of representatives. Career and Technology, Director Klein, Director Brewer.
I have nothing to report this month.
End of the school year, right? Director Murray, anything from IU 13?
No report at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Director Sekelic, anything from PSBA legislation?
No report this time.
Okay. Then proceed to our public input session. These will be items not on the agenda. Our first individual this evening, item not on the agenda, is Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Carpenter, you have 4 minutes, and Gareth will be keeping time for you.
Thank you. Nathan Carpenter, 110 Fisher Avenue. It's hard to top off what some other people already said about how we all feel about our kids and daycares and transportation. My question is, how we found out was just through the rumor mill and Facebook. Something like this that can adversely affect a lot of people in Northern Lebanon School District. This is something, I'm glad you pulled it off the agenda, but this is something that really should be brought to people's attention. It's not something we should be hearing through the rumor mill. It's not something we should be finding out on Facebook. This should come from you guys. You're all on the board and we all respect that, but we the people have rights too. And we pay for everybody's salary in this school district. We pay for everything in this school district. That's coming out of our pockets. So we have a say, we're stakeholders in this as well. So I ask, if this gets brought up again, that we are all given ample time to react to this discussion. Thank you.
Non-agenda item? Mrs. McCoy? Sorry.
Still reside at the same place. I'm talking about leadership. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Dwight D. Eisenhower once said, "The supreme quality of leadership is unquestionably integrity. Without it, no real success is possible. No matter whether it is the section, gang, a football field, in an army, or in an office." Honesty and integrity are 2 important ingredients which make a good leader. How can you expect your followers to be honest when you lack these qualities yourselves? Confidence. This does not mean that you should be overconfident, but you should at least reflect the degree of confidence required to ensure that your followers trust you as a leader. Inspiring others. A very challenging task, but it can only be possible if you inspire your followers to set a good example. Commitment and passion. When your teammates see you getting your hands dirty, they will also give their best shot. Good communicator. Simply put, if you are unable to communicate your message effectively to your team, you can never be a good leader. Decision making. Capabilities. Decisions taken by leaders have a profound impact on masses. Although most leaders take decisions on their own, it is highly recommended that you consult your key stakeholders before taking a decision. After all, they are the ones who will benefit or suffer from your decisions. Arnold Glasswell said, "A good leader takes little more than his share of blame and little less than his share of credit." Accountability. Holding your subordinates accountable for what they are or are not doing will create a sense of responsibility among them, and they will go about their business more seriously. Delegation and empowerment. You take on the key responsibilities and delegate the rest to others, empowering your followers and delegating tasks to them. If you continue to micromanage your subordinates, it will develop to a lack of trust. And more importantly, you will not be able to focus on the important matters. Empathy. Very important. Unfortunately, most leaders follow a dictatorship, that particular kind of style, and neglect empathy. Although understanding the problems of your followers and feeling their pain is the first step to becoming an effective leader. Thank you.
Mr. Ritter?
Oh, good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next individual, Mr. Murphy?
Andrew Murphy, I still live at the same place. This is the second year in a row that we've had a controversy with graduation. And this comes with recognizing Stephen Smith, who died last year, who was in this year's class. The administration made a bad call. I thank you guys for stepping up and redirecting them and letting Stephen be recognized. Because that's the right thing to do. The comment that was made was just totally wrong. I want to thank you guys for answering public comments and questions at the committee meetings. We're all in this school district together. We all have thoughts on how to better it, and together we can work to get to fix the issues, because more minds can help you guys if you guys are willing to listen. And of course, you guys did approve the budget, which is still $1 million short. I don't know when you guys are going to get that fixed. And you guys should be demanding that it is fixed from the administration, that they come to you with a balanced budget every year. You need the money to pay the bills. And if you go in the negative, you're not going to have the money, you're not going to be able to pay the bills, and then what happens? Do we have to let teachers go? Do we have to turn out the lights in the school? What do we got to do? This needs to be seriously looked at, not just wait to next January, like we did this last year. And then, if you look at the difference between what was presented January and what was just approved now, $200,000. That's all that, the whole difference between what was presented at the beginning of the budget to what was cut, where the numbers ended up at the end. No significant decrease of the deficit. So that means you're going to lose $1 million over this next year of your ending fund balance, and it's clear as day in your documentation for what those numbers are.
Thank you. Next is Zickler. I want to say the name correct. That's why I'm going to allow you, Mr. Zickler.
Brian Zickler, 12 Willow Creek Avenue. Just wanted to thank you for allowing me to speak, and also thank you for allowing another year of my kids to go to their daycare and go to the elementary school they're supposed to go to. Just echoing what people have already said, I'm not going to belabor the point anymore, but you know, just the hardship that would create on families who have children who go to childcare facilities outside of their home elementary school boundaries. Also want to say too, just I do adolescent health programming throughout the state in different school districts. I'd be willing, I had heard mention of a focus group being formed possibly to look at this issue. I'd be willing to serve on it. I know a neighboring school district that we looked at ran into the same issue a few years ago, and they gave a 5-year grace period for people to figure out what to do. I just want to kind of strongly urge that a year, especially in this district, is not going to be enough time for people to figure out where they're going to be sending their children. My wife and I live comfortably, and I know a year would not be enough time for us to figure out what we would do with our kids. And I'm sure, you know, 5 years is probably going to be pushing it too for other people. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Final, Rebecca Diaz.
I just wanted to say thank you for letting me speak as well, and I emailed the board, so thank you for reading that and for listening. I just want to personalize mine a little, and I do want to say that I do work for a transportation company that provides busing for 7 school districts. I know that our neighboring school districts, for a fact, allow the daycare exceptions because they have the same issues that we do. Whereas in East Hanover, we don't have a daycare center in our actual school area. So, I'm wondering, did you do studies? Have you asked how to make it work, other school districts to make it work? The formulas that the bus companies use to get funding for the transportation are based on how full the buses are, how new the buses are. D.D. Fisher has newer buses than some of the other transportation companies that we used before did. So, being an experienced company as well, will that help them to fill the buses and actually allow us to get more funding for transportation to cover things like, this is kind of off topic, but someone had mentioned about the cameras on the school buses. I can tell you from experience, from seeing things, that those cameras are there to protect our children. They are not there. Your child's cell phone does not matter. When your child is having something done to them and the other kids are bullying them, but that camera can say what happened. When a school bus is in an accident, that camera can see what happened, and that camera can save that bus driver's life as to whether or not they were being responsible with your children, or it can tell the truth that they were not being responsible with your children, and I would want to know that. So I am all for the cameras and the GPS. The GPS is not just GPS in order to get them places. GPS is in order to make the stops more effective, the routes more effective. It helps with that. So it's not just like your car GPS. There's a lot that goes into it. I just want to tell you real quick my story. I am a single mom, and I have 2 boys. I get 0 in child support, so it is my responsibility to provide for my family. That does not allow me to take just any job, because let me tell you, that's a big burden to bear. And I am not saying that for you to feel sorry for me, but that's my reality. And I actually got government assistance in a daycare for my children. However, I didn't feel that that daycare was a fit for my children. So I went from paying $40 or $50 a week, having government assistance to help me, to paying $200 to $300 a week out of my pocket so that my children are in a daycare facility where I can go to work and I can feel that they are safe and that daycare facility can accommodate my children's needs. So there's a lot to consider, and I just ask that before anyone makes a decision, consider reaching out to other schools, consider reaching out to other transportation companies and seeing how they make it work so that we can make it work too. And like Brian said, I honestly don't know what I would do if my kids could not be bused from their daycare. I don't have family that doesn't work that could help me. And again, not to feel sorry, but this is the reality of the situation for some of us. And if you tell me that I have to, while I don't agree with it, obviously I'm going to figure a way out, but I need time. Like he said, a year is not very much time when you think about it. So just please make your decision carefully and put yourself in our shoes. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, does anyone have any items for new business?
I do.
Oh, okay.
I think the new business that I'd like to propose is really highlighted this evening. We have people that have waited the entire board meeting in order to discuss a non-agenda item, when in fact many times a non-agenda item, although it might be not on the agenda, the theme of what they are talking about is relevant to what we will be voting on throughout the meeting. And let's just make sure. So, and also, again, they have to wait the entire time just to get their point out. So I think we should all really know what's on everyone's mind at the beginning of the meeting, as opposed to splitting this up into 2 and seeing, who's going to be speaking at one point as opposed to the other. We don't have that many people speaking that this meeting time is going to be the same whether they speak in the beginning or the end. So I'd like to look into, I don't have the policy number to make the change, but I'd really like to look at having all public comments being made at the beginning of the meeting as opposed to splitting it. So I'd like to at least propose that to be discussed at committee meeting next month. And then, I don't know if it has to go to tentative because of the policy change and then go to the next month after that. But I'd like to at least have a discussion within the board. I haven't discussed this with anybody else, but I think it's at least an item that I think would be relevant and would help the community be more vocal and be heard before we were making major decisions, even if it's not specifically that agenda item that we're asking them to talk about. Okay? That's all.
I would second that discussion and also encourage that it follow presentation. Begin at the beginning of a meeting, but follow presentation so that students for the honor rolls, when we have the massive amounts, because sometimes public comment can get a little bit heated, and I think language was used here tonight that I don't think some parents would be happy with their first grade student receiving an honor roll award would care to hear. So I think that I would also encourage that we still keep it after presentation, but at the beginning of the meeting, so just to keep in mind in case I forget or I'm not here when it is discussed. Thanks.
I know Gareth is taking notes over here, so we'll look at that policy and that will be on the agenda for our August committee meeting. I also have new business. I would like to give an update on our superintendent search. I did announce the schedule at the committee meeting last time, but I also want to do it this evening as well. So I will tell you our process and our hopeful dates as we move forward through the summer through the process. We developed the advertisement and the job description at the end of May. June 1st, we published the advertisement. The application deadline for superintendent candidates is June 21st. The paper screenings by the board will take place the week of June 25th. Interviews will be held June 16th and 18th, or sorry, not June, July 16th and 18th. Second round interviews are planned for July 23rd. July 29th to August 2nd, that week, we will look for if there are opportunities for community input. That will be that week. August 5th to 9th will be visitation with the board. August 12th to 16th will be final selection and board approval. So we're looking to have a candidate on the agenda for August to start the new school year. Our hope is that whomever would be able to begin at that time, but if there was a 60-day hold, we would be looking at a transition in the time of October. So I wanted to make sure everybody was updated on that. We did have a community survey. We're hoping to get feedback with that. So please take the time to complete that survey online or reach out to any of us with your thoughts. Is there any other new business?
I have two things I'd like to address. First one being the daycare situation that was talked about tonight. It was a very hot topic, and I felt a lot of passion with the people that spoke. And I just want to say that, like, I really need to commend everyone in the audience, and I'm proud of you and us as a community to listen to you speak up here with dignity and class. Everybody was just conducting themselves in such a great way. The man from New York, I think you're from New York, boy, you got me fired up listening to you talk. You were really good, and I loved the accent, and you really, just the way you talked, I really appreciate hearing that. The last lady that spoke really hit a lot of things home that I think people needed to hear, and it just, honestly, I'm really fired up right now to serve you guys, and not just you in general, but us. I know Mr. Murphy had discussed about working together and stuff, and someone else, I don't want to butcher your name, but Bryle, yeah, Bryle had talked about he could give some input if we start certain things, and I just, boy, summer's a great time to get rejuvenated, and I really, after hearing and seeing how we conducted ourselves as a community tonight, I'm really excited to work with everybody in the next school year. So I just want to commend everybody for that. The second thing I wanted to talk about was I really think we'd be remiss as a board and a community and a school district if we didn't recognize somebody that did a heck of a job this year serving our district. About a year ago, we were faced with the inevitable task of trying to find an athletic director, and tough budgets as we hear about each month. You know, we need to make cuts and this and that. So as a board, we decided maybe we can get through the year by doing a $15,000 stipend, give someone a stipend to do this job. Well, to give someone a stipend to do this is a full-time job in 90% of districts, okay? So the person we hired and accepted this job for, Mrs. Beidler, I can say without a doubt, there's not a person in this room, and I'm talking blue-collar, white-collar jobs, that is, or in these tables, anything that has worked harder than her. A full-time teacher with a full-time schedule. She got one extra period a day to try to do an athletic director job, and then did an athletic director job, which good athletic directors, like where I work, they spend 50, 60 hours a week doing that. So 50, 60 hours a week doing athletic director tasks along with a 50 or 60 hour teacher week. I'm not a mathematician, Mrs. Martin, but I don't even know if there's that many hours in a week. And this lady totally hit a home run and did a great job for us. I'm telling you right now, there has not been a better athletic director in our district since Mr. Ludwig, Ed Ludwig, retired 20 years ago. I honestly thought this would be her taking the job and being a game manager, just making sure buses are scheduled, making sure the refs get their checks. But you know what? I mean, she started new initiatives here, not even knowing if she'll get the job the following year. And I just can't commend her enough on what an outstanding job she did. And if I was looking for an athletic director to hire, I mean, I've talked to other ones and they all comment how great of a job Julie Beidler did. And I'm telling you, she was just awesome, and I think I appreciate everything she did. Sorry, I'm preaching him. Actually getting a little emotional too, but I'm telling you, I can't believe the amount of work she put in for a $15,000 stipend. And I just want to say we appreciate it, Julie Beidler. If I was a girl, I'd have a kid for you, but I'm not. But I just want to recognize that. All right, I'm done preaching.
We love when Nate has new business.
Can I just do one quick follow-up to that slightly, it's not going to take as long. I do want to assure this community and the community members that aren't able to be here because they are working and their kids are in childcare and moving forward. This was an issue that seemed to come up on everybody very fast. It's been discussed for some time, but clearly we need to include a lot more people moving forward. And I will assure you that as long as I'm on this board, the community will be involved every step of the way, and I will follow up monthly, weekly, daily if I have to make sure that those contacts are being made. And I look forward to working with all of you to find something suitable for the district, financially, for the students, for every building. Thank you.
Anything additional? If not, meeting adjourned. Thank you.